Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is another installment of my little series dedicated to the Senate Bill 675 in Pennsylvania, which is the Buprenorphine Medication Assisted Treatment Act. To sum it up briefly, it's Pennsylvania's way of adding more regulations and oversight to the medication-assisted treatment of buprenorphine, aka Suboxone or Subutex. The Senate bill is based on so many misconceptions, and they are using these misconceptions as their supporting evidence. One of the main arguments is that there is no protocol to ending treatment. They think that this lack of protocol is somehow a way to keep us on medication to make the doctors and pharmaceutical companies more money. But that's not true. That's not true at all. There is no timeline or protocol to ending MAT, and there's a good reason for that. MAT is very individualized. None of us have the same addiction story, and none of us have the same recovery story. There's absolutely no way that they can put out some sort of protocol for how long you should be on treatment, how much you should take, when you should taper, when you should stop. It will never work like that, and we need to accept that. MAT is individualized. It should always be individualized. That being said, deciding to stop or taper off of Suboxone is something that you need to think about. And it's a conversation that you need to have with you and your doctor, because ultimately it's up to you two to decide when to end treatment. I'm not going to give you a protocol to end, because obviously I said there isn't one. What I am going to do is give you some questions that can start a conversation between you and your doctor to decide if you're ready to taper, if you're ready to stop, or maybe how you can get there. What do you need to do in order to reach a point where you can taper? Because tapering is possible. Brief story, I tapered off in 2010 successfully with minimal side effects because I did it very slowly, and I took a week off of work for FMLA time, and I took 1 week off of work, and I had some mild stomach issues. I did not sleep at all. That part sucked. And I had some restless leg syndrome. But after I went back to work the next week, things got better. At that point, I was down to 0.5 milligrams every other day. Before we go on, please subscribe to my channel, turn on the little bell notification, because I post videos pretty regularly, but not on an upload schedule because I am beholden to no one. And like this video, share it, please share it. I'm really asking you to share this one. Share my other video about the Senate Bill 675. We need to make our voices heard. This is your call to action, guys. Speak up, be heard. Before we get started, I need to make two disclaimers. One, I'm not a medical professional, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I've been in recovery since 2008. I'm an opioid addict, polydrug addict, honestly, if you want to think about it, but I have been on MAT twice, and I am still on it. I started my second treatment, I entered treatment for the second time in 2014, and I am still on it. Disclaimer number two. I will use the word Suboxone quite often in this, probably the entire time, honestly, but I'm referring to buprenorphine or methadone. This could work for both treatment programs. So, hear Suboxone, think methadone if it fits you. Okay, so let's talk about this conversation or questions you need to be thinking about. Let's start with the important part, which is your drug history. When did you start using? How old were you? The human brain doesn't fully develop until age 25 to 30. It used to be 25, but honestly now they're saying it could be as late as 30. If you start using at age 15 or age 17, which is actually the median, I believe, for when people most likely start using opioids, your brain has not fully developed. As a result, your brain might not ever function normally. So I'm going to explain how opioids affect the brain and what your brain might be lacking and why it might not ever function normally. But that's okay. We can work with that. It's fine, so don't freak out. But so you have your brain, right? And your brain produces dopamine pretty regularly, pretty normally, but nothing too crazy. And then you introduce opioids, which produce an extraordinarily huge amount of dopamine, and your brain is like, oh, well, it's getting this, constant drug use, so this constant surge of dopamine, your brain stops producing dopamine naturally as a result. It wants to maintain that level of homeostasis, which I talk about often. Homeostasis is just maintaining that level of balance, like your center point of balance. Your body doesn't want too much dopamine, so your brain will stop making it. So when you take the drugs away, your brain is suddenly lacking dopamine. It's in a dopamine deficiency, and that's when withdrawal happens. That's when you feel like shit. That's when you're depressed and you're sick and it's awful. So now we have this amazing tool called Suboxone, which can come in here and produce dopamine for you, but it doesn't have the euphoric effects or the analgesic effects. It's nice. It has that ceiling effect, which I've mentioned in my previous video. So Suboxone can come in here and treat the dopamine deficiency while you rebuild your life outside. So it's treating the interior boo-boo. You know, you got a boo-boo in your brain because you're not producing enough dopamine, and you can get a job. You can fix your credit. You can rebuild your relationships. You can work with a sponsor. You can do all these amazing things without cravings, without feeling sick, without the pressure or constant stress of needing drugs. Gotta get drugs. This is all I need. I can't think of anything else. So as a result, your brain at age 15, it develops thinking that's normal, thinking that chronic drug use is normal. So your brain learns or develops abnormally, and it doesn't quite learn how to produce as much dopamine as you need. You might always be in a dopamine deficit, and some people, even if they started drug use later, they still exist in a dopamine deficit. Most people have a co-occurring disorder with addiction, so that could be like depression or anxiety or any other mental illness. And I honestly think that that plays into this dopamine level. I think that people like myself, personally, this is anecdotal, but I think that I started using because I was lacking that dopamine, and when I used, everything made sense in the world was great. I think those people that experience that, because not everyone did, not everyone felt that way when they first used drugs, but the people that did, like myself, were probably lacking dopamine. And when we got that big surge of dopamine, it was just all over. That was that. So, I know I'm a little bit off track here, but if you started using drugs when you were young, your brain did not develop properly, and there's no way to redevelop your brain. So those people, honestly, if you started using very young, you might want to consider long-term Suboxone use at a very low dose. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just enough to give you that dopamine boost that you need. And with the ceiling effect, there's no abuse, no high, no euphoria. I think I'll get into it later, but I want to talk about the goal of recovery being abstinence, but we'll mention that later at the end. So aside from the age that you started using, you also want to think about your drug usage. How much did you use? How did you use it? What was your method of administration? How often did you use it? How frequently did you use it? Have you gone through periods of drug use, recovery, like relapse, or was it just one time? Those factors matter, but not as much as the age in which you started using. That is a crucial element to how Suboxone is going to work for you and how long you should be on Suboxone. The next thing would be family history. So, do you have a history of addiction in your family? Is this something that is obviously going to be a problem for you? Just because you have addicts in your family doesn't mean that you have to be an addict. Please don't think I'm saying that. It's not so much that addiction is hereditary, it's that we make bad choices and our decision-making skills are compromised if we come from a family of addiction. Do you have a support system? Is your family structure solid? Do you have a toxic family? Do you have an abusive family? What about your extended family? What about your siblings? What about your cousins? What about your partner? Are you married? What's that relationship and home life like? Then you should consider your recovery history. How long have you been in MAT programs? How long have you been in treatment? Have you done it before? Is this your first time on Suboxone, or is this your second or third or fifth? How long have you given clean UAs? Have you had any relapses? Are you a poly drug user? Are you still using other substances and not opioids? Some of us do. And how many times have you had at recovery? Is this, your second or third try? Have you learned from your past mistakes yet? And then another big thing that you should consider are your social history. Again, your support system. How strong is your support system? Outside of your family, what is your social support system like? Do you have friends in recovery? Do you have friends that even know about your history with addiction? Or is it a secret that you keep? Do you have friends that you met in meetings? What about your job? Do you have a stable job, a stable source of income? Are you expecting any promotions? Is there a potential layoff coming up? Are you going back to school to continue your education? Are you still in high school and just trying to graduate? Are you still in college and trying to finish that program? Are you going for any certifications or extra training at work where you will need to be on top of your game? Are you good with money? Do you have any money saved? Are you living paycheck to paycheck like most of us? Do you have any hobbies? Do you have anything that you do for fun? What do you enjoy doing? Have you faced any stressors while on Suboxone that you've been able to get through? Like the death of a loved one, the loss of a job, something hard. How did you get through it? What were your coping skills like? Was it healthy? Was it hard? Did you use your support system? Did you use the tools available to you, or did you suffer through it? Did you fall? Did you struggle? Basically, I'm asking if you're going to have any life stressors coming up, and are you prepared for them? Are you expecting any? But of course, we can't always expect what life throws at us. Nothing ever works out the way you expect it to, and life is always going to throw you a curveball. Are you ready? Do you have the tools and skills in place to get through it without being on medicine? Now, when you get off of Suboxone, it's not just that you're going to experience withdrawal symptoms. You know, as you taper, you need to taper slow and low. Low and slow is how Real Talk Recovery Nicole says it. Low and slow. And it's so true. You don't want to do this where you taper down a little bit and then you wait 3 days and then you taper a little bit more and then you wait 3 days and you taper a little bit more. Your brain can't keep up with that. You want to taper down and let your body stabilize. I think that a good way to do it is to taper down and then just kind of fluctuate between your dose, but like stay steady. DM me if you have any questions. I don't want to go into too much details about it in here because I'm not a medical professional, and you must always consult your doctor before any decisions you make about your medicine. Please, please, I'm not a medical professional, but I can talk to you about that. I'm just saying, don't do it quickly. Take your taper slowly. If it hurts, you're going too fast. You want it to go so slow that it's almost infuriating, and that's okay. There's no rush. Why are we rushing off of this? The main question is, why are you trying to get off of Suboxone? Why are you trying to end treatment? Who is making you feel like this? Is it you? Is it insurance? Is it politicians? Is it your family? Is it your job? What is the big push behind this? I think too often the goal in recovery is abstinence. Abstinence. I have a big bone to pick with this whole abstinence argument. Like, it drives me insane. First of all, if you're taking your medication as prescribed by doctor's orders and you're not abusing it, you're not getting high, you don't have any euphoria, you're not using drugs, you are abstinent. You don't tell someone with Parkinson's disease who has to take L-Dopa, which Parkinson's disease is a dopamine deficiency, just like opioid addiction. You don't tell them that they're not abstinent because they take their L-Dopa. You don't tell somebody with depression that they're not abstinent because they take their antidepressants. But yet, when we get people that are on MAT, or people that are, you prescribe something like Adderall or benzodiazepine, we want to point fingers and be like, you're not abstinent because you're treating your mental health condition. That's BS. That is such BS. The goal of recovery should be not relapsing. Simple. What's it going to take for you to not relapse? Because a relapse is likely going to end in an overdose. The latest statistic that I read is that if you relapse, you have a 60% chance of overdosing. Guys, that is insane. That's insane. The goal of recovery should be to not relapse. If you are on MAT and you are doing it correctly, you're abstinent. Period. No, I don't care what anyone says. So this is a conversation that you need to be having with your doctor. That being said, I'm fully aware that there are some shitty doctors out there. There are some doctors that are in it for the wrong reasons. There are some doctors out there who are only in it for the money. And there are some doctors that just don't know any better. So it's up to us to be the most educated. Do I think that's right or fair? No. I think we should be able to trust in our medical professionals, but sometimes you can't, and this is our livelihood. You need to find a doctor that you feel comfortable with, that you trust, that you know has your back, because this is seriously life or death. Fight for our voices to be heard. We need to speak up against this Senate Bill 675 and other bills like it. There are more than just this one. We need to tell these politicians what Matt has done for us. We need to make our voices heard. I know I keep saying that and I sound like a broken record, but it is so crucial, guys. This is so important. More regulations for MAT treatment just means more barriers. More barriers means less people access treatment. Less people in treatment means more people die. I think that's all that needs to be said. I love you guys. I will see you in my next video. Stay up, stay strong, stay sober.